We're live. It's the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse. Welcome. We are here pretty much every day, unless the host gets virus, crappy, mucus. Blah, blah, blah. In any event, it's a Wednesday. And look, this situation at KNBR has become even more irksome, more problematic. I'm being very kind. KNBR for the January ratings were just released. KNBR went below a 2. They're now 1.9. They are the lowest ever for a major sports station, a sports station which is plunging and cratering as terrible as it is. It can only get worse. I don't think it could get any better. And this is for the January radio ratings. If you just Google January San Francisco radio ratings, you'll find the official tally. I don't generally talk about other stations unless there was some really, really, outstanding kind of or the opposite trend. These, by the way, folks, just to be fair, they are the so-called beauty contest numbers. These are not the numbers, the advertising traction that the advertisers purchase off of, but they are a very, very succinct reflection of stations that are in the respective market. And KNBR has had some of the worst numbers compiled. This has been ongoing, but really reflective now. And mind you, this is a station that has the 49ers, who, although they didn't have that great of a year, still, you have the NFL, you have the cachet of professional football. 49ers, even though they didn't do well, they're still the bona fide leader, no pun intended, in terms of talk, in terms of interest, in terms of why sports stations are the only ones that are truly grasping for any kind of traction in the terrestrial radio market. KNBR is now at 1.9. Their morning radio show is tanking quicker and quicker. Now, I'm not a fan of that show. They've had quite a bit of change. They fired one of the lead characters over a year ago. But it's proof positive that quality dictates success, generally speaking. And Brian Murphy, again, I'm not a fan of. He can't carry this show. And his breadcrumb that he has that's co-hosting with him, it's indicative of the kid's got good meaning. There's a few things that he can do, but he sounds like a robot. He talks like a robot. He can't do what is certainly something that you should be able to do, and has a personality and not have to rely on rap music and crap that most of the people listening to that show have no idea of what the hell this kid is talking. Well, they don't know what the hell Brian Murphy is talking about, but that's another story. The morning show is like 18th in the entire market in terms of morning shows. They couldn't survive KNBR, even with the 49ers. And don't tell me about the record. The conversation is still vital. They are a significant team still in the NFL, and the NFL is king. The afternoon show, the midday show, shows, by the way, that are in complete turmoil, and has led me to tell you folks all along, I would not be surprised if one day KNBR is non-existent. Oh, they'll be able to be on the dial, but that you wake up one day, and it could be any day now, as I've indicated, and all you hear is syndicated programming from another market. Baseball, which normally would be something good, something positive to talk about, something on the radar. But baseball, Major League Baseball, is a disaster, has no numbers, has no traction, isn't helped locally by the fact that the Giants, even with a couple of various pickups during the offseason, players are not a very exciting team, are not expected to compete for the National League West Division. But like baseball in general, it is perceived as an old man's sport. Guys in their 70s, white guys. That's just the facts, folks. That's not me pontificating my opinion. That's the case. Baseball is perceived as old. Combine that with the Giants and the upcoming baseball. Want to know why they hardly ever spoke about baseball? Why they, even though they're the flagship station of the San Francisco Giants, while they're continuing to talk Warriors, 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 if not 49ers, because that at least still has some iota of interest. But even those teams have not drawn, combined with the fact that you have no significant personality on the radio. And the people that had any degree of interest, of gumption, were being fired at KNBR simply because the economics were not there. And Cumulus, which owns KNBR, could not pay these various personalities because the revenue simply wasn't there, isn't there. They barely have enough money to cover paying for the lights. And by the way, they're moving into this new building, sharing the scant little area of space in lovely Daly City with another radio company. It's not very big, any day now. But the situation is the situation. You can't screw with the numbers. KNBR is tanking. I don't know how they survive. I truly don't know how they survive because, unlike other things commonly referred to as toxic assets, radio stations no longer are toxic assets. And what's that? A toxic asset is something to which you can actually make money off their debt, they being whomever the toxic asset is. They still have entities and properties which, from a bank standpoint, could be seen as something to which you can attach upon the respective debt. KNBR, like a few other stations, even their hardware is not worth anything. And their biggest expense, which is their payroll for the few people they got working there full time, that in and of itself is a negative. And now they've dropped into the hinterlands, into the lower than school district and other stations. Their competitor, although lower than they are, is still managing to survive because at least they've got the NBA. They've got the NBA and they have a lower overall expenses, 95.7 the game, which is owned by Odyssey, which in and of itself is tanking. But I mentioned KNBR a lot because they have multiple outlets and traction. They did. KNBR AM, KNBR FM, the old KFOG, KNBR.com. Why do you think they're asking you, fans, to go to their YouTube or their whatever page? Because they're doing anything they can think of to try to garner attention off radio, which is dying and will be dead any day now, officially. But when you can't attract an audience and you have to go to these breadcrumbs, these former Uber drivers, literally, to maintain any degree of following, when you have to go and hire back, how humiliating to have to go kvetch and fetch a schmuck like FP Santangelo back or Larry Krueger and his little Woody regarding NFL draft picks in the 49ers. That show doesn't garner any attention. They got Larry Krueger back because he's willing to take a shift for $100 so he can do his little 49ers and dress up as John Brody or Joe Montana. That show generates zilch. Listen to the ads. There's no ads. Just like the bulk of KNBR now are what's called these remnants ads. These are national ads that have nothing, no revenue in them whatsoever. And why KNBR has to rely upon literally a non-entity program director, I use in air quotes, who has no power, who has no juice, who couldn't fire anybody unless it was some low-level janitor. KNBR is in a mess, a total mess. And I don't know how they survive. Honest to God, I don't know how they survive. They have very little personnel. They have Uber drivers working as producers. It's going to be a very, very interesting next couple of months because even with baseball coming, unless the Giants get off to some historic fast-paced start, which is unlikely, and even with that, baseball is not the kind of ratings-driven nirvana that attracts listeners to a dying industry. That's not my opinion, folks. That is fact. And KNBR is in the proverbial toilet. You might as well flush it because that's where they are.